Hey YouTube, what are you doing? Come on, get down! Hey guys, what up? The Tominator here. So in this video, we're going to be counting down the top 5 most inspirational bodybuilders ever. Now, obviously, it goes without saying that a list like this is going to be highly subjective. I tried to make it at least somewhat objective by selecting some of the more popular bodybuilders, who a lot of people tend to gravitate towards and root for, and not just my own personal favorites. That said, if your favorite bodybuilder didn't make the cut, please don't take it personally, just let me know in the comments below. So, first up, we've got GREENE. Originally, when I was putting this thing together, I had Kai a little higher, but the reason I bumped him down is because he hasn't been competing at the Olympia these past couple of years, and I think that is kind of demotivating. Some people might even feel like he's kind of given up or stopped trying. I'm not sure that's fair to say, but either way, he's been out of the spotlight for the most part lately, and I think that negatively affects his standing in this list. Still, there's several good reasons why I included him. For starters, he's the only guy who's really ever pushed Phil Heath during his reign. Sure, some people might say Dexter was close in 2015, but I don't really think so. He was close in the upper body maybe, but Phil blew him out of the water in the leg department. So Kai and Phil have that competitive rivalry that really makes the Olympia more fun to watch. It's fun to watch these guys battle and go head to head, and it gets a lot of people rooting for the underdog. So that's one thing for sure that Kai brings to the table, is that underdog mentality. Because as many of you are probably aware, he's never been as genetically gifted as Phil Heath, and he grew up in poverty in Brooklyn in a foster care home, so he's always had a pretty tough life. Basically, like Drake said, he started from the bottom and now he's here, the de facto #2 bodybuilder in the world, so that alone is pretty motivational. Another thing, of course, is the physique itself. This guy has some of the freakiest body parts and muscle mass since Ronnie Coleman, namely those insane peaked biceps and the striated quads, triceps, and lower lats. His back double bicep is probably the most reminiscent of Coleman of anybody competing today, especially when you factor in those impressive glutes and hams. Then there's his posing. So Kai really has his own unique style and does it like nobody else. I would argue he exhibits perhaps the best mind-muscle control of any bodybuilder throughout history during his routines, as we can see from clips like this. And certainly he has some of the best balance of any pro bodybuilder ever, to be able to pull off moves like this one, you know, the headstand where he's basically riding a bike upside down. Just crazy stuff. And finally, we can't forget about his motivational philosophy. So Kai seems to be very well versed in personal development and spiritual self-help material, as he often espouses ideas like the law of attraction and the power of the mind in shaping reality. To my knowledge, no bodybuilder since Schwarzenegger has really hammered home the value of visualization and mental focus as much as GREENE. So he's a very motivational speaker and has given some pretty inspirational victory speeches over the years, and I think that's one of the biggest reasons why so many people gravitate towards him, is because of that positive energy that he puts out there. So I've got a clip right here that pretty much sums up his optimistic philosophy in a nutshell.
Everything you need, even in the face of the challenges that you have ahead of you. I don't know what they are. I don't know who you are. I don't know who's actually hearing this message. But believe it or not, there are larger powers in this universe and larger powers in your life. Resources that are available to you within yourself, around yourself. They say when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So I don't know what challenges you may have you're faced with, but I want to encourage you to be willing to look a little deeper, search a little harder. Understand that there are resources that are built into this life that if you take a minute and acknowledge them, use them, pull them in, because you want to get it so badly.
Yes, that's pretty great stuff. Next up, we have the Maryland Muscle Machine, Kevin LEVRONE. And one of the biggest reasons I put him on this list is because his physique is simply amazing and really one of a kind. The guy's got arguably the best shoulders, traps, and triceps of all time. Plus, he brings that same 3D balloon-type muscle that Phil Heath has, but combines it with a more streamlined midsection and better overall lines. I think Lee Labrada's moniker, Mass with Class, is actually better suited to LEVRONE in the sense that Kevin was able to hang with the big boys but still brought the aesthetics. Along with Flex Wheeler and Sean Ray, he's undoubtedly one of the uncrowned Mr. Olympias. And as good as he was from the front, he was no slouch from the side either, as we see right here. I mean, his side chest is basically unbeatable, and he's got a world-class side tricep as well. So, LEVRONE also put together some really outstanding and memorable posing routines throughout his career. He tended to pick some pretty epic songs, and along with the strength of his posing ability, this really helped the audience emotionally connect with him. As I said in one of my other videos featuring some of his posing clips, he was also very versatile in presenting his physique, meaning that, when he was heavier or posing to some harder music, he could pose in a more dominating fashion, whereas when he was leaner or posing to some softer music, he would pose a little more gracefully and artistically, like here. So another thing is that the Maryland Muscle Machine is just a badass straight up. From the dominating way he hits that side chest or the hands clasped most muscular, to his choice of music, tracks from Rage Against the Machine or Creed, to his workouts themselves, the man is undeniably inspiring. I mean, he trains like a mofo with some crazy impressive lifts, including 100-pound dumbbell curls, 500 pounds for reps on bench press, and 4 plates for behind-the-neck shoulder press on the Smith machine, as seen here. So I think he actually cranked this one out for like 5 or 6 reps, just incredible. And lastly, we can't dismiss his shocking comeback last year. True, he didn't place well at all, but the fact is that that he could even get up on that stage at the age of 52 and look as good as he did is nothing short of amazing and miraculous, really. So that should really inspire his fans, especially the older guys out there. Next up, we have the Shadow, Dorian Yates. Now, personally, I'm not a huge fan of Dorian, as you can probably tell if you've watched some of my other videos, but nevertheless, I get what is so appealing about the guy. For starters, how about that front lat spread? The best to ever do it, in my opinion. For another thing, he's got that no-nonsense attitude, in the gym and on stage. When he hits poses, he really hits them with conviction. I mean, he doesn't do anything half-ass. He doesn't dilly-dally around with fancy, distracting transitions like the way a lot of these guys, take their time nowadays, getting into the back double bicep, for instance. No, Dorian just hits a pose and he holds it. So, probably because he's confident that he looks good in the pose and has nothing to hide. Indeed, Yates tends to dominate in the mandatories. He's outstanding in both lat spreads, the back double bi, the side tricep, and has one of the best ab and thighs ever seen on a mass monster. Now, in the gym, the guy is just on another level, okay? I've never seen anybody train with his intensity. Not Arnold, not even Ronnie. Sure, some guys might lift heavier, a lot use more volume, but I don't think anybody goes to true failure as consistently as Dorian did. Also, virtually nobody lifts the kinds of weights he was while still maintaining such strict form. His workouts were absolutely grueling, the type to leave mere mortals throwing up their lunch in the parking lot out back. His work ethic was second to none, and he freely admitted that several of his competitors were genetically superior to him, but that he beat them anyway because he simply outworked them all. I invite you to go watch Blood and Guts, and I think you'll find it hard to argue with him there. Of course, then there's the physique itself. He's got arguably the best back of all time, and it's only arguable because Ronnie came along, right? Not to mention the calves, traps, lower back, and forearms, plus that grainy, granite-hard conditioning and unprecedented mass that pretty much blew everyone away back in 1993 and set a whole new standard. Someone left a comment in one of my other videos saying that Dorian is a man's man, and I think that's a totally apt description because there's nothing pretty about his physique nor his training style, but goddamn is it effective and it gets the job done. Now we move on to Ronnie Coleman, the fitting successor to Dorian Yates in so many ways. Because just like Yates, he had arguably the best back of all time, and fans will go back and forth to this day debating who was better. And while Dorian took the mass game to a whole new level in '93, Ronnie stepped it up yet again 10 years later in 2003. Another similarity is that Ronnie also tended to dominate the mandatory poses. In my opinion, he had the best back double bicep and rear lat spread in history, and you could even make a solid argument that he was the best in the side chest and most muscular as well. So that's like half the mandatories where he's virtually unbeatable. As for body parts, aside from the back, he had some of the best and biggest biceps, shoulders, chest, quads, glutes, and hams ever seen. So as great as his physique was, however, that's not even the number one selling point when we're talking about Ronnie Coleman and what makes him so inspiring. No, to see that, you really have to watch the man train. So his workout DVD, Ronnie Coleman the Unbelievable, could not possibly have been better titled because watching him throw around these humongous weights in the gym truly was unfriggin' believable, man. Sure, some guys may technically be stronger pound for pound or in certain lifts, but for my money, there's no doubt that Big Ron was overall the strongest bodybuilder of all time when you factor in how many different exercises he absolutely crushed. I mean, nobody to my knowledge has ever been stronger across so many different lifts. The guy was just inhuman. And despite his otherworldly strength, he still knew how to laugh and have a good time. So that's one thing I think a lot of people love about Ronnie is that he's got a great personality. He knows how to have fun and let loose. And, he had a couple very quotable catchphrases I'm sure we're all familiar with. And a certain charisma that most bodybuilders are simply sorely lacking. So that's why he's so high up on this list. And finally, we move on to the #1 most inspirational bodybuilder of all time. And to literally no one's surprise, yeah, it's Arnold. So this is the man who single-handedly inspired generations of bodybuilders and casual lifters alike, including many of the top pros throughout the 80s and 90s, and even to this very day, guys like Cedric McMillan credit Arnold as the one who got them into bodybuilding. So it's safe to say that no other bodybuilder has ever had this sort of impact or legacy on the fitness industry. I mean, no one even comes close, in fact. Now, no doubt a large part of his popularity is due to his acting career, which really put his name on the map and opened him up to a much broader market, because when Arnold made it in Hollywood and started starring in all these blockbuster movies, he essentially transcended bodybuilding for good. But I would argue this should not be seen as a betrayal or him turning his back on us, but rather a good thing, as it elevated the entire sport and made bodybuilding and weightlifting in general more mainstream than ever before. Moreover, there wouldn't be the Arnold Classic, the second biggest bodybuilding show of the year, and let's be honest, many of us probably would have never even heard of the Olympia if it wasn't for Arnold and all the attention he ultimately brought to the sport. So aside from his legacy, Schwarzenegger was also one of the most aesthetic champions of all time. He had those incredible biceps that looked like mountain peaks, a great set of calves, and a huge full ribcage that made his upper body look absolutely enormous and Herculean. Plus, to this day, his pecs are probably still unsurpassed, and he hits the side chest pose like no other. And aside from the possible exception of Frank Zane, I can't think of another individual who had a greater array of iconic signature poses than Arnold. Add in the fact that he displayed some of the most magnificent and polished presentation you'll ever see on stage, coupled with his unparalleled charisma, and it's easy to see why Arnold is head and shoulders above the rest. And of course, needless to say, he worked his ass off at the gym too. Probably no other bodybuilder in history had longer workouts with more volume. So that's my rundown for the top 5 most inspirational bodybuilders of all time. Let me know in the comments if you agree, or if you think it should be reordered, or if there's someone else altogether you feel deserves to be on here. Feel free to leave a like and subscribe for more, and until next time, players, I'm the Tominator, signing off, and I'll be back.